Hi, this is Stan from Hardwood Inspirations. Welcome to my channel. Today we'll be going over the construction of a cherry bookcase for my daughter Crystal. This will be part one of the construction. I hope you enjoy the video. Please subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, and hit that notification bell for my next project. Here I am cutting out the sides and the tops for the bookcase. The bookcase will be 3 foot wide and 6 feet high, a little bit about 6'6" overall once we have the base and top on it. Now I'm going to put the pocket hole screws, 3 of them across the top on both sides of the bookcase, so I can use that for connecting the tops and the sides. Here I'm assembling the sides and the top together, and I'm going to clamp it all up. So after doing a dry assembly, I'm now going to take it apart, put glue on it, and use the pocket hole screws using 1-inch square head screws to put and assemble the case of the bookcase together. I'm now going to make a small groove on the back of the case for the 1/4-inch backing board, and I'm using my little hand router with a ball bearing guide. I'm cutting now the 1/4-inch cherry plywood for the back of the bookcase. I now need to measure out the 1/4-inch plywood backing and mark it off so I can cut it to length. Now cutting it to length on my table saw. I then need to sand all the edges so they're smooth, and I need to round the corners so they fit based upon the bit that I did for the back of the bookcase. I then put the outer case back up on the table and checked it for squareness before placing the 1/4-inch backing board in place. I then proceeded to brad nail it into the back of the case using 1/2-inch brad nails. Then cut an additional piece to go on the bottom, so it's 1.5 inches thick on the bottom, and another piece for a center solid stationary shelf in the middle of the case. I attached the bottom board using 1.5 inch wood screws. I also then attached the center stationary shelf using some 1-inch wood screws with the pocket holes. I then made a jig for the shelf pins to go on each side on the top and the bottom portion of the case so that they would be evenly spaced. And here I am cutting the adjustable shelves to length. I then cut some solid cherry to 3/4 inch wide by about a 3/4 inch thick. These were for the face of the shelf, and then I ran them through the planer to make sure everything was the same thickness and width. At the same time, I made face frame pieces for the bookcase itself, for the sides and on the bottom. I then proceeded to glue and brad nail the face frames onto the cabinet. The face frames were 1.5 inches wide and 3/4 inches thick. So while working on the Cherry Bookcase, we had a friend drop by named Kurt, who had a project for Cy from Cy's Corner to do as a sink cover for their RV. I then made a template for a curved top and then used my jigsaw to cut it out using that template as a guide. And I then proceeded to do one of my least favorite things to do, and that is sanding. But in order for a good woodworking project to come out right, you need to sand it well. I'm now going to do a 1/4 inch round over all the way around on all the outside and inside edges of the bookcase. And then I will be sanding it. I then took a measurement to double check the thickness of the bookcase and then stood it up on its bottom so I can then proceed to make its base. Now that I have the plank all glued up and everything for the top and for the bottom, I'm going to dry fit the top, and then I'm going to put glue on it and clamp it in place. Probably use some brad nails to do a little additional attachment there. I then cut all the solid cherry pieces for the bottom base, not counting the plank which I'd already cut and put together. I then planed all the boards down to the same thickness and width. Then proceeded to cut them all to the correct length that I needed so that I could make and assemble the base. I'd cut all the baseboards at a 45-degree angle so that each corner would be nice and clean. And then I'm going to proceed to put an arch in the bottom of each piece. So after marking the arch in each piece, I then cut them out for me on her small bandsaw. I then made myself some 2" by 2" blocks to go in each of the 4 corners. I then proceeded to put a round over on all of the arches on each of the bottom pieces. I then used my Craig pocket hole machine to pocket hole the tops of the bottom pieces so they would attach to the bottom of the cabinet. I then glued up the edges and used a brad nailer in the corners, put the blocks in place, glued those in place so that everything was nice and solid, and I also screwed them from the inside so the base would be nice and solid, square and flat. I then glued and screwed the base onto the plank that will go on the bottom of the cabinet. I then put the base on the bottom of the cabinet, double checked it for distance on each side, made sure everything was good, and then I used 1.5" screws to screw it to the base of the base frame of the bookcase cabinet. I did not want to glue it in case we ever have to make any kind of adjustments of any kind. Si then helped me lift the cabinet up, and we put it on its base to see how it fit, and it was nice and level. I then finished cutting all the adjustable shelves to length, put faces on each board, glued them on, and used my brad nailer with 1" brad nails to attach them. I then used my router table to round over the edges on each of the shelves. I then sanded all the shelves really good, made sure they were all smooth, and then I test fitted them in the cabinet bookcase itself and found out that they worked. So now there are 4 adjustable shelves and 1 permanent shelf. So at this point the bookcase is almost complete. We just are waiting for Si to finish the intarsia to go on the top portion there, and then we will sand and finish everything in part 2. Thanks for watching the video on the Cherry Bookcase for my daughter Crystal. Please look for part 2 coming soon with the finishing and the intarsia that will be put on it. Have a great and wonderful day.